But let's begin this hour with the future of elections and our democracy. And a concerning piece out tonight in Politico magazine going in depth about what the Republican Party has been doing nationwide since the 2020 election. That political experts argue is a dress rehearsal for undermining next year's midterms and beyond, writing, quote, "For the first time in American history, the losing candidate refused to concede the election. And rather than dismissing him as a sore loser, a startling number of Americans have followed Donald Trump down his conspiratorial rabbit hole. The safeguards that ensured he left office last January after losing the presidential election may be crumbling. The election officials who certified the counts may no longer be in place next time he falsely claims victory. If Republicans take Congress, a compliant speaker could easily decide it's simply not in his interest to let the party's leader lose." When you live in a democracy, that is a truly terrifying scenario. It is death to democracy by 1,000 cuts. And as of now, the Republican Party is getting away with it. Texas now pushing forward with an election review in 4 counties thanks to the wishes of Donald Trump. It remains unclear why the former president wants answers about results in a state he won, not only because it makes Trump and his flock sore losers and sore winners. But this tactic didn't work out too well for them in Arizona. That Maricopa County fraud, despite lacking integrity, still resulted in Joe Biden being named winner in 2020, and by an even larger margin than first thought. And then there's last night, where Trump held a rally in Georgia, bringing election conspiracy theories to the stage with him. Some of the other speakers last night in Perry were extreme candidates that Trump endorsed to replace politicians. This is the important part, to replace politicians who dare tell the truth about Georgia's election results. That truth being that Joe Biden won Georgia fair and square. These are all things we should be concerned about. The GOP's battle plan against democracy, it is before us, and members of Congress are working to raise the alarm.
It's a political party outside of the constitutional order. It's not agreed to participate according to the rules that we've adopted. So what we're trying to do in the Democratic Party is to defend democracy itself at the county level, at the state level, and at the national level. And what that means for us in Congress is to get to the truth of the January 6th attack, because that literally could be just a dress rehearsal for what we're going to see in 2024 as they continue to perpetuate the big lie.
Words dress rehearsal have never been so scary. Joining us now, former HUD Secretary and MSNBC political analyst Julian Castro, and MSNBC contributor Victoria DeFrancesco. She is Assistant Dean for Civic Engagement at the LBJ School of Public Affairs at the University of Texas at Austin. It is great to see you both. Secretary Castro, I want to start with this wide-reaching effort by the GOP to undermine election results. Washington Post journalist Robert Costa was on Meet the Press this morning discussing Trump's overall strategy. Take a listen.
He wants power back. Our reporting in the book shows these rallies don't get a ton of coverage, but he's out there with this Churchillian-type language. We'll never surrender. We'll never give in, whipping up thousands of people across the country. And the most important thing is not just his personality as the story. He's influencing the Republican Party across the country to now run for office, to be secretaries of state, to be election officials. 2022,
he's bending
2024.
the party to his will, isn't he?
Certainly.
Chilling. So essentially, we have the Republican Party working to install extreme candidates to oversee elections. This is unfolding as the party also pushes the big lie in its effort to pass restrictive voting laws. Secretary Castro, how do you see all of these individual actions building together to undercut our democracy?
The way I see them building together, among other things, is that now you have the duly elected officials in states like Texas and Florida and some folks in Arizona, Georgia, these elected officials who have the power to help rig a system or at least undermine voter confidence in the system, going along with Donald Trump's big lie, acting on his lies and whims because they're deathly afraid of losing in their own primary. And that's what you have going on here in Texas, where Greg Abbott has 2 primary opponents that are seen as further to the right than him. And so on the same day that Donald Trump sends an open letter saying we need an election audit in Texas, lo and behold, there's an election audit that's announced but only for the 4 biggest counties in the state. What makes it dangerous is not only that a sizable percentage of Republicans, one of our major parties, believes in it, but also that that's translating into official action in states like Texas. And so it represents a real threat to our democracy.
Secretary Esther, I do want to ask you, do you have a sense of why it is that they want to recount in those 4 counties?
I think that this continues the narrative that they've set of big urban areas versus rural areas in the state, here in Texas and in other places. The fact is that Joe Biden won 3 out of those 4 counties that they've said that they're going to audit. The governor went on TV today to say, well, this was always in the works. There's an election audit that happens every time we have an election. That's simply not true. He's not telling the truth. This is aimed at undermining confidence, particularly in those places that have gone Democratic. It sends a strong message to that base that there is fraud out there that really doesn't exist. And most of all, this is being done because Greg Abbott has a primary in March that he doesn't want to lose.
Vicki, I want to broaden out a little bit and pull up an opinion piece from the Washington Post, Robert Kagan. He writes, quote, in a little more than a year, it may become impossible to pass legislation to protect the electoral process in 2024. Now it is impossible only because anti-Trump Republicans and even some Democrats refuse to tinker with the filibuster. It is impossible because, despite all that has happened, some people still wish to be good Republicans even as they oppose Trump. These decisions will not wear well as the nation tumbles into full-blown crisis. I want to talk about 2 things here, Vicki. One is the importance of voting rights in this moment and making sure that there is federal legislation that is passed, which is so we cannot take our eye off of that. But also this question that we all circle back to, and I've asked strategists, I've asked former electeds, but for you as a political scientist, I'm wondering, is there going to be a consequence at some point, right? When does the consequence come for Republicans as a party for not just going along with all of this, but being active partners in building these lies and these conspiracies?
So the question is basically, when do we get to the point of overreach? When do the extremities of the Republican Party snap back? Snap back either for the Republicans themselves or for Democrats to get even further mobilized. And that is really key. And I am an optimist, and I do hold out hope that there will be some kind of federal level protection for voting rights, given that that was stripped in 2013 after SCOTUS did that. But the question is, will what is happening right now in Texas push that forward? Because what you said early on, Alicia, is this is death by 1,000 cuts to our democracy. And it is so worrisome because you see it on the one hand, being something that supports the narrative of Donald Trump, right? This is something that he has been pushing. But on the other hand, it really boils down to pure political calculus. And you asked the secretary earlier, why? Why is this happening? And regrettably, I think it is partially that brand of the GOP, but also the worst kept secret in Texas is that Governor Abbott has presidential aspirations and that the calculus is being made that he needs to cultivate this base. So I think that is even more of a reason why that federal level protection needs to be coming down, because we don't have that base of democratic stability that we had before.